Ireland, Nancy.
Home of my people.
Welcome to Dublin. Welcome to the conference. I think it really goes without saying that every single person here is to some degree very, very brave for going up against an organisation capable of doing something like that. And when I see stuff like that, it just hardens the resolve that I have to see these people brought to justice for the things that they do. So I just wanted to say that. Wow, what can I say? Nancy, any regrets?
I have to say that the reason why the docudrama just fell into, I never thought about it, and I ended up in 1 week getting requests from 2 different production companies. I chose a production company that I'm very happy with. The executive producer had worked on some Scientology projects for the BBC, so she knew about it.
Right.
So the script had a code name. When they were interviewing actors, they only showed them things that didn't have anything to do with Scientology, and when the actors were chosen, they had to sign, and it was a closed set. I mean, they really knew. This was scary for them.
I was going to ask you that. Were you actually afraid to do this? Because it's putting you out there. There's no going back.
For me, I mean, this is very personal and it's very emotional. But I first wrote, just give me a second.
It's okay.
I wrote this story anonymously on the internet under the name of Catherine's Story, and it was a much shorter version, but it included the meat and potatoes. And the reaction from that, I still have a banker's box full of emails from all over the world of people that had been through the same thing, that had been driven to psychosis, had been driven suicidal. And some were from family or friends of those that actually committed suicide and died and are no longer with us. And it was for those people that I wrote my book. And from the book, the people found that it was a story they wanted to show on film. So yes, it's hard to share that kind of vulnerability and that personal thing, but I mean, the voices of the people, and there's a poster up at front of the stairs.
That's right, yeah.
Which doesn't include them all. It doesn't. But it includes so many who have died as a result of this group. And that's why I continue to speak. I got trained as a chaplain, as a multi-faith chaplain, and one of the things that we learned is the antidote for shame is me too. Me too. So when you're feeling ashamed, which Scientology makes you feel, and every single one of those people thought they were the only ones because that's what Scientology told them. They said, look at everybody else in the room. They're all happy. They're writing success stories because, again, as John attacked, you can't talk to each other.
That's right.
About what's really going on. So these individuals all thought they were the only ones that had ever had a difficulty with Scientology technology. And that is so destructive. And it makes them feel ashamed, internal, like there's something wrong with them. And so my book and this movie is Me Too. Me Too. And it's for all those other people.
Thanks, Nancy. Thank you so much. Dee, would you like to just come up and join us for a few minutes? Because part of Nancy's, the work she did for Scientology was actually with the Office of Special Affairs, which is basically...
First the Guardian's Office.
Before that, it was the Guardian's Office, and then they changed it into the Office of Special Affairs. To put this into simple terms that people might understand, it's the Dirty Tricks Bureau of Scientology. And would you say they were capable of anything?
Oh, yes.
Right. Is there anything you can say that they persuaded? Welcome, Dee. Welcome to Ireland. Welcome to Dublin. Welcome to the conference. Is there any... Yeah. Is there anything that you could say that could kind of like let people know that they're not dealing with this benevolent organization? We're not dealing with nice... Well, individual Scientologists themselves are actually very kind, good-hearted people because they think that they're actually doing good for the world. The truth is that Scientology itself is toxic, dangerous, and absolutely deadly. Did you know that when you were asked to do things?
Absolutely not.
What did they actually have you do? I mean, is it okay to talk about that?
They needed help with enemies. Oh, they're enemies. And I said, well, I want to help. I had gone clear. Oh, I wanted to live, do things. Wasn't moving much on the bridge after that. But I wanted to help, and I said, what could I do? They found something for me to do. Everything had to be secret. And can't tell anybody. I had to make up stories of why I was leaving the area, and I didn't know where I was going.
Could you even tell your husband at the time? I mean,
no, I wasn't married.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, I wasn't married then. I was single, yeah. And I had a dog and a cat, and I said I could take my dog and my cat, and I could work, because I was a public person. I tried staff for 2 weeks. I couldn't make it. Louder?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Public person. And I did try staff for 2 weeks, and I couldn't make staff and work. So I kept with working and just paying my bridge and my way. Anyway, they said I could take my dog and my cat. I could still work. Well, and I could help them. That's basically, I was worried about my cat and my dog, and I could work so I could feed myself. And but I couldn't tell a soul, and that was the hard part. Even my mother I had to lie to. And I lied to everybody. And I lost all those friends, and I never did get them back. Wow. All the Scientologist friends, and all my old friends and family, I just lost it all. I did reunite, I did tell my mother eventually, because they moved me to Clearwater from Miami, and I go, all right. That was how I felt, because warm weather, and I was used to it in Miami. And of course I lied to my mother all the time, and she didn't know what I was doing, and I'd see her periodically. But they had me infiltrate a group. It was Stamp Out Scientology, SOS. And city commissioner was in charge with Alex Cornell, who was an ex-Scientologist. So I had to be very, very careful not to speak Scientologies, so to be found out. So I was under that fear all the time, and that problem. Changed my name, basically went back to my maiden name, changed my name from Miami. The Miami org was Dina Bruno. That's who I was, Dina Bruno.
So they gave you an identity,
yes.
and they asked you to infiltrate a group. And
Yes.
what were you meant to do, like get information on people? Or?
Mainly. Oh, I did say, I said to Ben Shaw, he got me in, and I said I wouldn't commit any crimes, because I had heard about that, because that was 79, and they had some problems. I didn't know what the Guardian's office did, really. I'd protect Scientology, But I did hear they did. I said, well, I won't commit any crimes that I could go to jail for or anything. And
did you feel they might ask you to do that?
well, I guess I did.
Right.
I was safeguarding myself, because I didn't want to,
Of course,
do
yeah.
bad,
And
real
was that
bad
your
things.
experience, Nancy, as well? Do you feel that you were asked to do
I
things?
was asked to do illegal things.
You were asked to do illegal things,
by
yeah.
both the Guardian's office and the We Don't Do It Anymore Office of Special Affairs.
Right. And
Yeah.
how did you kind of like, how did that settle with you? How did you...
Well, I remember when I was asked one thing in particular that was illegal, and I just said to you have one handler, right? And I said, I think that's illegal. There's a court injunction, and Scientology is not even allowed to do that. So if I, as a secret agent, go in and do this, this is against the law, right? And you told me that we don't do that anymore, so I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Right. So you stood strong, Dee, and you put your foot down. You said you weren't going to do anything illegal.
Right, but the illegal part, this is the tricky part, because I said, well, when I was starting to do what I did, and I go, is spying on people and telling them all that what they did, giving names and addresses and all that information for what, so they would know who was against them. he says, oh, it's not illegal. They told me that was not illegal.
Okay.
That you can do that. It's every business does it.
They do.
That's what they said. It says
So are they a
thing.
business or a church?
They are a business. Till at one point when I got arrested for protesting from the group I was with, and I belonged to the Scientology. Anyway, I got arrested for that, and I started thinking, what the, this is a church? If I got arrested, and if I got found out, that's why I was scared all the rest of my life. I was scared. If I got found out, I would be hurting the church that I loved, that I was helping.
Right.
Exactly. And it's like catch-22.
Yeah. So at all costs, you would protect Scientology by not having the Scientology name dragged into anything.
Absolutely.
And yet they were going to ask you to do things that were illegal. Okay. How does that even work? I don't know.
One of the things that's not in the movie that they asked me to do was Paulette Cooper, the same, who a book is coming out from Tony Ortega, and I can't wait. Her psychiatrist was in Boston, and so I was asked to get that file, to get her confidential psychiatric folder.
Wow.
And I tried to think of what I considered a legal way to do it, which is, work there, volunteer, whatever, have access and make a copy. And it wasn't going to happen. And so I was told you have to do a B&E. And I said,
What's a B&E exactly?
Breaking and entering.
Right. Okay.
And so I said, no. And I got demoted. I got demoted, and they got 3 people, and they went in one Friday or Saturday, and they, how sometimes doors have a window on the top, a transom?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So one guy boosted the other guy over, and then opened the door. They went in, took the folder, and brought it home. Kept it for, I swear, like 3 weeks. Made copies of it to send up lines.
So they were stealing a person's personal information
folder.
and, oh right, wow.
I found out later from Paulette that they had made copies and mailed them all around her private, personal therapy sessions.
Wow.
I mean, this is not a good group, guys. If anybody here thinks that this has got goodness in it, it doesn't.
Does the tech work?
The tech, see, we have this conversation going on. Hubbard stole so much stuff. And there is some of the stuff that if you go back to the actual original, not Hubbard's take on it, but to the original, you'll find that...
As it is, does the tech work?
Oh, as it is? Let's say, does it make you a more committed member? Yes.
That's for sure.
Right? Everything is geared, I liken it to whatever you have when you walk in that door. You are going to leave with nothing. If you had family, if you had money, and it doesn't matter if you had millions or you had 20,000, they're going to get it. They're going to get all of it. They're going to get you to disconnect and isolate yourself from friends and family so that everybody you have in your life is a Scientologist. So what happened to me, and they edited that wrong because during the RPF, I wanted out. I really wanted out. But that was the awakening that I have burnt all my bridges. I have burnt everything. I have no good relations with my family. I don't have a non-Scientology friend. And I have no money. And I'm pregnant. Where am I going to go and what am I going to do? And that actually started my slide out, which took a long time to undo everything.
Yeah, it does take a lot of time. It takes some time to get into Scientology sometimes, by degree, by steps, and you actually come out, I think, the same way.
Yeah.
It can take a long time. For some people, it can take years. It doesn't need to. No, it doesn't need to. Question, Billy.
If there's somebody
I have a question from my own personal experience, so I just wonder how you feel about this. After you got out, did it take a long time to find your way, find your path back, get on your feet? I mean, the struggle of not having a job before, not having a bank account, not being registered with the IRS, all that shit that comes on top of you, and then you've got to stand up and you've got to find your way again. You've got to go out and find a job without Scientologists. You've got to try and open a bank account. It's a nightmare. I mean, like 15, 20 years, you've been a ghost.
Oh, and we went to go buy a car. And the salesman was real happy, and he goes and he runs our credit, and he comes back white as a sheet.
Yeah, because you're a ghost.
He said he wanted to know if we were in the witness protection program. Because he'd never pulled, we were 30 years old, and nothing, not a speck of anything on our...
I came back after 30 years recently, and I went into the org in Plymouth and stuff, and then I went to sign on Social Security, and you know what they said?
What?
You don't exist. I said, what do you mean I don't exist? He said, you know history of building our computers. Where have you been for 40 years? I'm a bloody Scientologist.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Yeah, I just wanted to get that out.
Absolutely.
And that's the hard thing. It's one thing getting out, the other thing is getting back.
And that was why for us to not be initially declared, to be able to go to ex-SEERG members, you know, those friends who had companies and businesses was a lifesaver. And that's why it went step by step to get out. I don't know, I mean, if we had been declared and didn't even have that
that bridge.
loose community to bridge us into the real world.
Yeah, that's hard,
It was very hard.
It's tough on people.
Yeah,
I've met a lot of people who really struggle with it.
very much so.
Well, I could tell you, I struggled heavily when they retired me.
How
4
did they do
years,
that?
almost 4 years it was. Oh, Ben, he said, well, first, they changed my handler like 2 years in, and they didn't say why, except they had to get rid of him. Chuck, he, I guess, committed some crimes. I don't know. And I got another one. Then another year and a half to 2. And they said, well, you know, we're going to retire you. You know, you're going to be retired. So, retired. And Ben says to me, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do. I said, I had a job. I said, I can't move back to Miami because, as I found out, I was nowhere, I didn't exist anymore, you know.
Yeah, they erased you.
They erased me. I even,
You're erased.
even when they gave me 2 intensives, because after I worked very hard and using Hubbard's own exchange program and wrote letters to everybody. Anyway, I got 2 intensives. I said, just get me back where I was, you know, to handle whatever. And they had a hard time finding me, and then they had to, you know, but they found me, but I didn't exist. And then they didn't follow me because they tried to get me then on a course. And they had me coming every day for like 2 weeks. I says, I don't even let me come to this Clearwater place because people will see me and I'm not even supposed to, you know, I mean, I could be blown, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I lied to them because in Fort Harrison. And I said, finally, they said, you know, all right, come back tomorrow. So then I finally said, I'll start tomorrow. And I didn't show up. And they didn't come after me because they didn't even have my address.
That's right.
They had my mother's and some other.
One very interesting thing about Dee is for years, I know I was in the very unusual position of working for the Guardian's office, and then years later, the Office of Special Affairs, we don't do it anymore, right? And I could find no one who could claim that. And for me, there was no difference. Except that Office of Special Affairs use private investigators more. And I'm talking to Dee one day, and I say, what year did you start, and what year did you end? And I said, you also worked for both. She didn't even know because
No
she
idea.
was out there undercover, and all the changes happened, so that was when she got her new...
Right,
Right.
I was kind of pissed off that they didn't tell.
I can point to that because I was on the receiving end of the Guardian's office,
Right?
and then on the receiving end of the Office of Special Affairs. And I can tell you that it was the same individuals. When the Guardian's office was moved off, the only department that remained was Branch 1. So Peter Stumpy, for example, who ran Branch 1 harassment in the UK for the Guardian's office, was still running it right through the
Absolutely.
1980s. Miles Mellon. So the same individuals. It wasn't just that we don't do that anymore. The same people who did it were still doing it.
And that
Yes.
was Dee.
Yeah.
Dee was out there
Yeah.
doing her
And-
Guardian's office.
These were the actual B1 agents,
No,
the people running
right.
it, Stumpy
Oh,
was running it.
right.
Right.
Same people.
Well, same with Ben Shaw.
The PR people
Yeah.
were moved off.
Exactly.
Got rid of that.
Yeah,
It just changed the
yeah.
game.
Yeah, they just changed the name, but the dirty tricks and the use of private investigators more, because that made them feel like they had a sense of safety. Like the wiretapping that just came out in the HBO movie, that Tom had Nicole wiretapped. That was done by Scientology. Marty Rathbun admitted it on the HBO film. And a few years ago, they had discovered this PI had wiretaps on Nicole, and it was a big questioning thing, and they never got to the bottom of it. Well, now, this past week, it's finally been outed that Tom made a comment to Marty Rathbun of, I'd like to know what Nicole's doing or thinking, and Marty told DM, and he said, do it. So that's how come she was wiretapped.
So we're talking about people who've got no regard for other people's privacy, they've no regard for other people's human rights, and yet the Church of Scientology is a champion of human rights. But this is exactly what they do. They put up this huge big banner saying, yes, we're against this, that, and the other thing. They're actually committing those same crimes themselves, hiding behind that banner. And I think Hubbard himself was an expert at doing that. In his book Dianetics, which was, they call it book 1, he says, no, I'm not hypnotizing you, I'm waking you up. And then he proceeds to hypnotize you.
And the same book says it is hypnosis.
It does, of course, yes. So this whole contradictory thing goes on and on and on. Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask Dee or Nancy? Yeah.
I would like to know if you, Nancy, ever met Paulette after this.
Yes. Yeah, she came to do my movie. I was very honored. And there were a few other times, and we communicate a lot. And I am thrilled that this book is coming out, because when the FBI did the raids, she was headed to jail. She was going to jail because the FBI didn't believe her. They had her fingerprint on this bomb threat. And it was only because of the FBI raiding the Guardian's office that they found the documentation of how they tried to get her to commit suicide, how they tried to get her in jail, how the whole operation, that the man that she most trusted that lived with her was a spy.
She decided that she was going to commit suicide rather than go to jail. That was her determination, and she thought she couldn't stop it. And suddenly there it was. Let me say, I have actually had the privilege of reading Tony Ortega's book.
That's right.
Oh.
Yes.
It is wonderful. And as a historian of the cult, there was material in there that I didn't know. So there's some incredible stuff in there.
Thanks. Dee and Nancy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. One question.
I just want to know, you talked about how did Katie Holmes manage to get out so easily? And so
Her
quickly?
father is a very big divorce attorney, for sure. And before she got pregnant, he was making a few little inquiries on how do I get my daughter out of this. But then she got pregnant, and he was like, there's going to be a baby. But when Katie just made the decision, you can see his hand in everything. She first very quietly established residency in New York City, which gave her more control in terms of her, custody of her daughter. And there were other things that were done this was planned. It was like a Sea Org member trying to leave. It's a planned escape. She had throwaway telephone. Because she was watched all the time.
Yeah, because I wondered about that because I knew she had a handler all the time. I just wondered about that.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You were not there! You were not there for the beginning of the interview! But thanks to the internet, you can be.